Hey everybody, welcome to the third week of the Parent Resource Group from Awakenings Counseling. I'm Emily Gary, and this week we're going to be talking about coping skills. This is going to be part one of at least two parts on coping skills because there are a lot of them out there that we can talk about, and I find them to be really useful in helping kids to learn how to regulate their emotions. So when we talk about coping skills, these are skills that you can teach your kids at times that they are feeling calmer. So we start to learn them at times that they're not already feeling worked up. And then they're able to implement them at those times that they are feeling more worked up. Emotions that they might be having a tough time dealing with typically would be anger, anxiety, sadness. But they can also be more positive emotions or what we think of as positive, such as just happiness, but to the point where they're ecstatic and they're having a hard time calming down and it's causing behavioral issues and all of that. So these coping skills should be helpful in just getting them to learn to calm themselves whenever they're feeling some kind of overwhelmed. The thing that I want to start off with talking about first is the idea of HALT, because HALT is going to help you know when you need to be able to get kids to start using those coping skills. So HALT stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And when you see that your kid is starting to have some kind of, acting up, behavioral issues, something like that, that's a good time to check in with HALT. Like, say to yourself, HALT, and think, are they hungry? Are they angry? Are they lonely? Or are they tired? Because those are things that you can help them to address in the different ways that, might more directly address whatever's going on for them. So before we just, recognize that they're angry, sad, anything like that, and start to use coping skills, think to yourself, are they hungry? Because give them a snack. It might be time for them to have something to eat, and they might just be acting up because they, are hungry and they don't really recognize it, and so they're really moody. If they're angry, then yes, that is a time that we're going to start using those coping skills, and I'll get to talking about, how do we implement those. But think also about what is it that's making them angry? Like, is there a way of removing whatever that is, such as, is it something where they're having a problem with, feeling like you did something that, they're upset with. And so how can you address that and think about, okay, what is it that's making them angry in that situation? And being able to talk them through whatever it is that's making them angry, or at least being able to recognize what it is that's making them angry. Lonely. So this is one where, they might be feeling like they're just not getting enough attention from you or from other people. And so they might be acting out because they want some attention. And that's something that you see kids do pretty often is that, if they're not getting attention through positive routes, then they might go to more negative routes to get you to pay attention to them. So they might start acting up because any attention from you is better than no attention. And then finally, tired. So people get grumpy when they're tired, and it might be something where they're just having a really hard time regulating their emotions because they're sleepy and they've just had enough. So being able to say to yourself, HALT, and work through whatever it is that might be making them act up or feel overwhelmed in the first place is the first step to being able to help them address whatever the issue is. And it's also helpful for you. So think about that for yourself as well, especially before you respond to them, based on however they're acting, because it's very easy to get really annoyed with them when they're doing something that's, upsetting. And so checking in on yourself and saying, okay, how am I feeling right now? Like, what is it? What are my needs also? And how do I help my kid with whatever their needs are while also addressing and recognizing my own? So like I was saying, coping skills can be used to help kids with a variety of emotions. Today I'm going to at least start off by focusing a little bit more on anger, because that's one where we can see typically more destructive behaviors come about when a kid is feeling angry and doesn't know how to regulate that. So the first activity I'm going to tell you guys about, I don't actually have the materials for it, and I'm kind of glad that I don't, because it can be really messy. So this is one that you're going to want to do outside. And it's really basic. It would require going to the store. And so if that's not something that you feel like doing, that's okay. There's some other stuff that you can do as well. And then maybe once stores open back up, you can do this activity as a way of getting them to, understand a little bit better what's going on. So first off, I'm going to start by recommending something to you. There is a great book out there called Soda Pop Head, and I've used that one a lot with helping kids to think about the ways that they get angry, and then it just sort of bubbles and bubbles and bubbles, and finally they blow their top. And that is one of those books that you can actually find a reading of online. So you don't have to go anywhere to buy it. You can just look up online on YouTube Soda Pop Head, and there is a reading of that book. And it's about a kid who gets really angry and he blows his top, and about how he learns how to implement coping skills. And so I think that that's a great introduction to getting kids to learn about, like, okay, sometimes I get really angry and I end up blowing up and I end up doing things that might be hurtful to other people or myself. And so, what can I do to help myself calm down during those times? And that book actually does introduce several coping skills, and helps kids, just sort of recognize what might be different ways of staying calm while they're starting to get angry and the anger's building. And so the activity that I like to do to go along with this is your classic Diet Coke and Mentos or whatever kind of soda you want to use, and dropping Mentos into there. And so the idea there is that you get some kind of, bottle of soda. I did find that Diet Coke tends to have a bigger spray than other sodas, or at least most others, at least sugary ones. But choose whatever you want to. And you basically just make a little funnel. It can be just a funnel out of paper, so that way it's wide enough to fit the Mentos in. And then make sure that you guys are ready to back up when you are going to drop them in. But you go and you drop some Mentos down into the bottle through the funnel, and the soda explodes, and kids just think it's hilarious and really fun. And so what I like to do is get them to read Soda Pop Head, and we talk about that, and then we get to do the Mentos activity is sort of just, a reward for having gone through that. But it is also helping them to recognize, okay, what does it look like when the bottle actually explodes, and how do we relate that to times that you're feeling angry and the anger finally spills out. Something else I find really useful for helping kids when they're feeling angry, but also helping for other emotions that are overwhelming them, is helping them to take deep breaths. And so really stopping to take deep breaths as they're getting worked up so that they don't get more worked up. It helps them get oxygen into their brains. It helps them to slow down for a minute. It helps them to disconnect from whatever it is that's upsetting them. Not so that we just completely take them away from that and, don't address it, but so that they're able to address it more calmly once they've taken those deep breaths. I find that this can be really helpful for anxiety as well. So the different kinds of deep breathing that I like to do with kids are ones that are going to take their focus away from whatever it is that's upsetting them in that moment. And so I find that getting them to think about shapes and do some counting can be really helpful with that, especially for the younger kids who are just now learning those things, like learning what the shapes are, learning how to count. This can be a great way to integrate some of that education into what you're also doing in terms of working on coping skills. So first one we'll talk about is what is called square breathing. The idea here is that you're going to breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. So it's just as simple as And so getting them to do that just a couple of times, it does help them to focus on something else. It helps them to just get their bodies, feeling a little bit more calm, like have that physiological calming within them. And then from that point, you can address whatever it is that's upsetting them. Some kids, don't have the lung capacity for 4, or maybe just square breathing isn't their thing. Maybe the holding it makes them impatient. So you can modify it and just do triangle breathing instead if you want to. That would be where you do in, hold, out, and you don't have that second hold. So you would just go, and it's 3 this time instead of 4. So like that. Other things that you can do if, the kids just don't really connect with these ones, belly breathing, where you just have them put their hands on their bellies and feel what it feels like to be breathing in and out, and feel, how their stomach expands and contracts during those times. And just having them be in touch with what's going on for them, from that actual feeling. So getting them to connect with whatever that sensory piece is, that also helps them take their focus off of whatever it is that's getting them more worked up. Things that I like to recommend to go along with this. So there's, I know that I talked about Headspace in the first video that I came out with a couple weeks ago. Another app that's great for mindfulness is called Calm, and that one has some deep breathing technique practice in there as well. It actually just has this big circle that goes in and out, and you breathe in and then you hold it and breathe out. And kids, can really enjoy the visual aspect of that one. For the younger set of kids, there's one that's called Breathe, Think, Do, with Sesame Street. And so if you just type in Sesame Street Breathe, or, Breathe, Think, Do, into wherever you get your apps, that's one that will pop up, and it actually helps them walk through some scenarios where these little monsters feel upset for whatever reason, and it helps them to, practice through the monster how they might stop, take their deep breaths, and then take action after that. So that's deep breathing. That's one that, I think the more you practice it, the better they get with it. And what you want is for this to just become second nature for them, so that it doesn't feel like something you're forcing them to do and invalidating whatever it is that they're feeling in that moment, but just getting them to recognize the benefits of being able to stop and take that breath and then feel more calm before you help them address whatever the problem is. All right, the final activity for today is a craft activity. It is making a calm down jar. And calm down jars are another thing that kids can use as a coping skill. If they're starting to feel upset, they go to their calm down jar, they're able to swish it around and just sort of watch the glitter settle and help themselves to settle before they address whatever it is that's upsetting them. The great thing about calm down jars is that there are a lot of different ways to make them. So my hope is that you won't have to, order any ingredients or try to go to the store for them or anything like that, but rather use what you have on hand. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of stuff on hand right now for making a calm down jar, and I didn't want to have to go to the store. So I'm going to use what I have, but I recommend just, looking up the different recipes online. There are a bunch of different ones, and seeing which ones fit with what you've got. So things that you could use would be clear glue, glitter glue is great. Sometimes dish soap can be a helpful thing to have in there. You want to have some kind of aspect, like something that would make it colorful. So, I've used paint even before, but food coloring is great, or I'm actually going to be using mica powder today. And then having something that's in the jars that can be swirled around, that the kids watch before it settles down. And so having some kind of glitter, maybe beads, especially if they're beads that would, take a little bit before they sink. And so you get to swirl them around and then watch them as they fall down to the bottom of the jar. I'm calling it a jar. I do actually recommend doing a calm down bottle and using a clear plastic bottle if you have one of those on hand, just because this can be breakable, and especially if a kid's feeling really upset or if they're swirling something around really wildly, you just don't want to really take that risk with having broken glass and water everywhere. But I'm using a jar today because that's what I had on hand. So what you're going to want to use first is just have a clear jar or bottle, something that has a lid on it. What I do, when I make these with kids and we make it with a bottle, is that I duct tape the lid afterwards so that there's just no risk of this going everywhere. You want to fill it most of the way full with water. I actually probably should have filled this up a little bit more because I don't have any glue on hand today, or not any clear glue to put in here. But you want to save a little bit of space if you are putting some kind of glue in there. I've heard it recommended doing about 20-ish, 25-ish% glue versus 75 to 80% water. And so then you're just going to have them pour their different things in there. And part of what can be really fun with this too is if you do have, excess materials on hand and you feel okay with making this into more of an experiment, then making a few different ones and having kids see which ones feel most effective in terms of how long does the glitter and everything else swirl around before it settles, and, how well do the beads sink or float and all of that. But so I have some mica powder that I'm just going to pour in here. This is a like a shimmery powder that is also colorful. So I'm going to pour some in there. And then let's see. I've also got a few different beads on hand of different sizes. And so I'm just going to toss all of these in this jar and see how it turns out. It looks like my beads are sinking, as you can see. When I swirl it around, they might float around for a little bit. We'll just see how it goes. And so instead of doing my classic or typical like stirring kind of thing that I might do, I'm just going to swish it around in the jar. And we'll see how it mixes and what happens. So yeah, I actually really like the way that this mica powder looks in here because it does give it this really glittery, swirly effect. And so the way that a kid uses a calm down jar is they're feeling upset and they just go and they can actually take some of their emotions out on it and shake it up, shake it around. And then finally what you want to do is just give it a spin and then watch as everything swirls. And the longer it takes for it to swirl, the more time they have to watch it and to settle down as it's doing that. And so it's really just about being able to, check in with that. I mean, it's a watching it, it's a sensory kind of activity for them. And this is just a go-to thing that they'll have on hand for when they feel upset. So you can say, go get your calm down jar and give them a little bit with that to, watch and just give that time that they're letting everything settle down. And then after that, you talk about whatever it is that's upsetting them. So these are all the activities that I have for y'all today. I did want to recommend a book, actually, that one of my supervisors heard about that is specifically aimed at helping kids to deal with coronavirus. And, while we're all under this stay-at-home order and just feeling cooped up, this is a way for you to be able to talk directly with your kids about, about what it is that's keeping us at home right now. So it's called Me and Henry Put the Spotlight on Coronavirus, and you can actually find it online. So you don't have to buy it or anything like that. It's available online. Again, it's Me and Henry Put the Spotlight on Coronavirus. So that's everything I've got for you guys this week. Next week, I'm going to be talking about some more coping skills because there are a lot of them out there, and this is, great things to get kids to be practicing throughout the day, and then hopefully, it helps them in the long run. All right, take care. I'll have the discussion group on Wednesday at 3 if anybody wants to join, and I look forward to talking with you. Bye.